Now, the greatest idea of all time. Stay tuned for
From the Trenches of Hollywood.
Here are your guru guides from the A-list to the D and everything in between. It's Ted and Craig.
Welcome to the premiere year 2 of From the Trenches of Hollywood. I am Ted Davies.
Hey, everybody. It's Craig. Great to be back. Season 2, I'd call this. I don't know.
Yes.
We're not quite in year 2.
Yes.
It's the continuation of season 1. You know, we just had a spring hiatus there, which was great. Had a great time. Happy to be back. Got a great show today. Got some great shows coming up.
Yep.
How was your break?
It was great. Got a lot of writing done. Got a Kickstarter fulfilling right now. We're trying to complete that out. How about you? You did some fun stuff too, it sounds like.
Yeah, a little writing, lots of traveling. Mexico, love Mexico. So
Yeah.
was down on the they call it the Mexican Riviera in the Pacific.
Awesome.
Puerto Vallarta, love it there. Shout out to all my homies in Puerto Vallarta. But listen, exciting show. I wore a special hat. Well, you've seen this hat before. It's one of my favorite hats, but I wore it in honor of our guest today. We'll get into that a little bit more. If anybody knows anything about this hat, then it's a huge clue. But set it up, man. Let's not keep him waiting any longer.
No further ado, we've got the animator excellence, John Celestri. He brought in Boba Fett animation before Boba Fett was part of Star Wars canon. He was part of Dragon's Lair video game, if you guys remember that back in the 80s. I spent so much money. I think I probably spent my parents' money, my college entrance money on that game, one after another. And of course, he was part of the He-Man franchise. And I can't just, where do I begin? Let's bring him in. He's royalty as far as I'm concerned. Welcome, John. Welcome.
Hi. Welcome, Ted. Hi, Ted. Hi, Craig. How you doing?
Great to have you here. Welcome.
So glad to have you, John. This is the first time you two are meeting. So
yes, this is the first time. And so I guess do you want me to introduce myself, or do you want me to is this enough of an introduction, or do you want to ask questions, or how do you want to do this? This is your show.
I want to know about the hat. I want to figure out the hat.
It's Care Bears.
Hello, Care Bears. Hi. He knows.
All right.
What was that? 1985 was Care
Yeah,
Bears?
about 1985. There? Yeah, 1985. The Care Bears feature. Yeah, that's it.
Not that I wasn't really okay. So I was. What kid wasn't into Care Bears to some degree in the 80s? They were too popular. Everybody liked Care Bears. Even the toughest guy at school, which wasn't me.
No, I was into Boba Fett, bro. I was into Care Bears, but that's okay. You go run with it. With it.
All right, I'm sorry. Okay, so what's for the next Jeopardy question? What is that going to be?
Well, all right. For those of you who have lived under a rock for the last 30 years, John, tell them a little bit of who you are. You're an animator.
Okay.
Been doing this thing for 40 years, 50 years.
It's getting close to 50.
Yeah.
I got into the animation in actually professionally. My first day was at a film, a feature called Tubby the Tuba at New York Institute of Technology, and that's where I cut my teeth. I learned with through the old studio system with old Popeye and Mighty Mouse animators.
Oh wow!
Wow. And that was while we were doing. I learned, in-betweening and clean up and how to write sheets and how to deal with the camera, all the technical stuff that all animators in the New Yorker group, like Terry Toons and Fleischer and Paramount, they all did their own, exposures and, how to work with exposure sheets and how to work with timing and all of that sort of thing. So there was a lot of technical material, like how to make a pan move, things of that. Anyway, so I learned a lot of that and through there. And And so that was my opening. That was 1975. Yeah, that's 1975. So we've passed the 47-year mark.
Wow.
I know Craig and I were 4 years old then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
we
Yeah.
were. But so many things from my life that you were a part of. Everything from going way back. One of my sister's favorites was the Raggedy Ann.
Yeah.
Raggedy Ann
Yeah.
the movie.
Raggedy Ann and Andy. Yep, that's it.
Uh,
Raggedy Ann and Andy. Yeah, that was a great. That was kind of like the what is it? The Big Bang of animation, because in that group of New York animators, young animators, like assistants, we were just all doing it. It was myself and Eric Goldberg and Dan Haskett and Tom Cito and all kinds of other people. Myself, Eric Goldberg, he did the genie in Aladdin. Okay, Tom Cito became the president of the animation union for 9 years. He was one of the storyboard people on Shrek and at DreamWorks. Dan Haskett helped design Ariel, all kinds of stuff. You probably worked with him, Craig, right?
Very familiar, the name to me, Dan.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, so we were, that was the Big Bang, and we were all in the same, office, floor, for Raggedy Ann and Andy, and so we all. Mike Sporn was the guy who really gathered us together. He was in charge of the assistant pool, and he gathered everybody together, and that was real dynamics going on there. So yeah, that was a big thing. People don't know about Raggedy Ann and Andy very much.
I remember it. I remember that. I remember how I thought it was such a cool the way it was done.
Right.
Even when I was younger, I remember how seeing the colors, the tones. It wasn't like a big bright, like over the top, like I would think Hanna-Barbera, bright primary colors.
I'm sorry, it was over the top, especially the greedy. The taffy pit, yes.
I can't. Okay, all right, that I give you. But I remember it vividly though as a kid, and I'm sure that you're, like Craig's sister,
right,
did too. But man, so awesome.
Craig, not to take over your question, but the next one is Nelvana. That's where I went from Raggedy Ann and Andy to Nelvana, and that whole group. Well, that's where Star Wars Holiday Special that was done there, but I was there, for Cosmic Christmas, Devil and Daniel Mouse, Romeo and Juliet, Please Don't Eat the Planet, that sort of thing. We did the Holiday Special, but also Rock and Rule.
You remember Rock and Roll, Craig?
I do. But now, Nelvana, where were they based out of? Where was that company?
Toronto.
Okay, so I thought they were based in Canada. I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Weren't they in Canada?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
My connection is that I was working it was towards the end of Raggedy Ann and Andy. This is in December of 76. And we were all putting in all kinds of late hours. And so Jerry Potterton had taken over production from Richard Williams because Richard Williams was having problems getting the thing through, and it had to be they only had so much money, so we were coming down. So Jerry Potterton, who had directed, on Yellow Submarine,
wow.
he came. Okay,
wow.
So so he came in and he was there. I mean, he was a friend of Richard Williams, but still they came in, brought him in. Remember, there weren't a lot of feature films back then for animation outside of Disney. There weren't. There were just a handful and whatnot. So he came in as he was running through. So he came into my office. It was like 9:30 one night, and I'm ready to call it quits, go home on the subway. And he comes into my office, into the room where my team was. And he said, "Okay, anybody here want to go animate in Toronto?" And I figured Sheldon Cohen, who became a very big, very a well-known animation film short person up in Toronto, the film board. He was one of my in-betweeners, and he said, "I'm not going to go to Toronto. Don't want to do that. I'm from Montreal. I don't want to go to Toronto."
Yeah.
So I just raised my hand and said, "I'll go." So that next, the couple, he phoned. He said a friend of his who was up in Toronto, had a studio, was part owner of the studio, and that he needed an animator to replace someone who had broken his wrist. And so therefore I said, sure, I'll take my reel, I'll go up there. So that was that weekend, it was there. The following, they looked at what I was doing. They said, can you do this 15 seconds a week of animation? I said, sure. You don't say no.
Right.
So you go there, and that's how I got it. The following, I'm up there.
Hustling. Got to get the job. That's what it's
Oh,
about. Yeah, build that resume.
Yeah, you better believe it. Yes.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I just to throw out some others out there for everybody that, some of the ones that I really grew up on too were the He-Man and She-Ra.
Big time.
So that who produced those? Who was
That's Filmation.
Okay.
That was Filmation.
How did you fall into that?
Well, because I was working at Bluth's on Dragon's Lair and Space Ace, and they went bankrupt. So I went working looking for work, and I was at Ruby and Spears working on I was supposed to work on the Dragon's Lair half-hour Saturday morning show, and until that happened, I wound up on Turbo Teen.
Really?
Okay.
So
I remember.
And then from there, I went to Filmation because they were looking to do. They had a work there, and also they wanted to open up a feature unit. And I had feature film experience. I had already 3 feature films under my belt by the time I was like 33, 34.
Wow.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Did Dragon's Lair bankrupt the company?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't that. It was that they didn't get paid from the guy who ran away with the money.
Yeah, I remember that was the story, how it was the most popular thing around, and they made no money. And
because he ran away with the money. Whatever the hell, what else can you do? I mean, and they didn't pay. He didn't pay what he was supposed to pay, and that's why after all the finagling, Bluth still owns the copyright, on all of that. But that's not going to do you very much good, if you don't have money, banks. So that's what happened with that. So that's how I wound up at Filmation and working there for about 3 years.
Great stuff. But we could talk to you all day about all your projects so easily, but we have limited time.
Yes.
And what do we talk about here mainly is story creation and writing, and the differences in the different mediums. And you are our first animator on the show to talk about your process. So Ted. Ted has his own process as a comic writer and
as a painter.
Novelist.
I mean, novelist. And you and I both have similar ways of doing things, but I think John has got a very fascinating way that he does layout as well as storytelling. It's become you're a seasoned professional when it comes to this, because you've got it down. You got it to a point where you've really have seen it, and I'm in awe. So, but it's very similar to what you do too, Craig. So it's very interesting. So tell people a little bit about that, about your ideas from how you get things rolling.
It's TV animation is very series oriented, and for the most part, they're one and done half hours. Okay, but the format, what we have today, which is basically the same kind of format as the half-hour live-action stories of the 1950s, like like Peter Gunn or 77 Sunset Strip, or what have you, where you have a beginning, middle, and end, and that's what you're going to follow through on for that. But you have we still have the same situation of setting up your condition and making sure that people don't turn away. You're hitting all the same time points, but you still have to hit your guide points and your beats.
So let me ask this: do you, as an animator on a series like that, when you get into that world, how are those stories created? Is there a writer or the animators all collaborating with the director to figure out where the story's going?
No, you should. You have a hierarchy. You have a showrunner, the same way as anything else. You have somebody who has to have the vision of it. But it also includes, because that showrunner is then basically saying, okay, what's the tone? What does it look like? What's the atmosphere? What's the world that you inhabit? And so there's a Bible that you work with, first off. You have a Bible that's very extensive, at least within the context of being able to have your characters, the world that they live in, what the rules are, and then also a mechanism to generating plots, so that you're not doing the same. I mean, you are going to wind up having the same, tried and true plots, but you hope to try and give different twists to it. But it depends on how much time you have, because I'll work on creating a Bible, but many times you don't get it. You don't have enough time to actually, delve into something new. If you're generating, you're doing 13 episodes, but a lot of time it's 26 episodes that you have to do, and so to have just standalones, 26 standalones, are very difficult to have very complete stories that haven't been done already. So you got your arc. So you try and put in an arc for that season.
So let me ask you this. So it's just like any series.
Yep.
That gets ordered up. We already know every episode what it's going to be. We have the plot. We usually have, if I have a 12 episode order, I usually have the first 4 or 5 scripts are pretty much locked.
Yeah.
So in this world, are the scripts themselves created within that Bible, or are you're pulling from this and creating the next script for the next show? Or
well, the Bible is telling you what you can or you can't do with the characters.
Okay.
All right, because you're pretty well, because most of these things are already. It's very different. Today's animation is very different from 40 years ago, where the shows were merchandised. Today, merchandise are ads. That's what animation is. So you really are locked into what you can do. You're just trying to, sell the toy, pretty much.
I guess to simplify it in my mind then, is the Bible is basically your world novelization of what you're doing. And you're just pulling from that and animating section by section.
No. The Bible is saying that this is what you can do. Here's the elements that you must use. Is, for example, we have so many characters. What are their relationships? Okay. Then you put those together, and then you say, okay, what is there a story arc? What is the goal? That's happening. Many times you have that in the Bible, and then say, okay, where, and it's linear usually. And then so within that story arc, you have your 12 episodes or 13 episodes, and you create that arc. And
so you have some latitude. You have some latitude then to be creative. You're not really just locked in trying to animate what they have laid out in stone.
No, because that's the producers. The showrunner, the producer, the creator of the show is doing that. and then saying, okay, now, many times they will say, okay, you might get 3 or 4 people together in a room, and you'll throw out ideas, and they'll pitch, okay, characters on so and so, and this is the type of show we have, and so therefore they'll pick and choose out. If you may throw out 10 ideas, and you may get 2 out of them.
Sure. So these are the animators that are
No,
throwing these ideas
this is
out.
the stories. The stories, the scripts are done. The animators are right down. This is a very different world.
So you're bringing in a team of writers to throw out these ideas.
The writers are doing that. It becomes, here's the thing. Today's animation is verbal centric, is writer centric. When I was coming in, it was artist centric. Today, writers don't seem to understand that animation shouldn't be a stepping stone to live action. There's a visualness that must be understood, that has to be drawn. You can't have 15 people in the same scene all the time. You have to be able to focus and not just have them stand around, because it's just terrible. So, and that's the problem, is that animators, have to deal with what they're being given, and today there's a lot of different parameters. Which is what I'm saying, is that you go backwards into where the animation industry was when animation was first started, and it was storyboards that drove the story. You had your beats and your ideas and whatnot, but you still had to draw it out first. Minimal dialogue, but so today it's almost dialogue all the time, wall to wall talking heads, which is what you had because of the 1950s. Hanna-Barbera taking radio scripts basically, and to do Huckleberry Hound, Quick Draw McGraw, doing the Flintstones and the Jetsons. Those are all different beasts. It's animation, but it's not pure animation, which is very visual in content and storytelling. And so there's, I'm sure I'm trying to give you a nice idea of what the difference, what an animator does or is supposed to be able to do, versus just illustrating the words, and the dialogue.
What would you say is a good example of a truly animated piece where it's driven on the animation, it's about the animation?
Okay. Well, if you're going to do that, let's take Night on Bald Mountain. Okay. Rinsky's of course. Okay, Night on Bald Mountain is a story. There's a beginning, middle, and end within the 7 minutes of there. Okay, there's your classic thing. I would still say that if you're going to do a prototype for anything, it's still Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, because it has all of the elements. It has danger. The queen is trying to kill Snow White. It is all of those things. You have your secondary characters. And then you also have a character transformation, and the biggest transformation is Grumpy, from a woman hater to being the most broken up and a lover for Snow White. So you have all those elements, but it is not just talk,
Right.
So that would be my first thing. But it hasn't been bettered than that. You've tried, but it hasn't been bettered.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like that. Fantasia comes to mind. Disney products of early Disney definitely come to mind. So let me ask you this then: is there opportunity still, though, for you as the animators to make an impact on that script once you start animating what was written. You say, "Wait, this doesn't
No,
play," or you just
no,
locked in.
no. You are locked in because it's already gone through the mill. It's not like you were okay. The Disney situation and the old Fleischer situation and the Warner Brothers situation, you had your various stars and who were the ones who performed. Today, you're not performing. You are basically taking what has been motion captured and
Right.
adjusting that. You're adjusting a live actor's a performance. The last, even Disney, you would use reference, for that, but they wouldn't rotoscope. It would still be, they'd see what the elements were and, for posing and whatnot, but you didn't take that literally and just work around it and manipulate it in some way. If it's like, a painter would have a pose, take a photograph, would get reference and whatnot, and then make the painting, make the sketch. But you weren't just told that's what you have to do, like a cog. Animators are performers.
Is anyone out there still animating like that, like they used to?
I don't know. I don't know because
Not mainstream anyway, I guess.
not mainstream. No, you can do that. You really can do that. But the problem is that you need to have people who are capable of having a performance. Making a performance without needing, all of that. I mean, it took a long time, and they had reworked it when computers were, 30 years ago or 22 years ago, when Jeffrey Katzenberg said, "Okay, that's it. 2D is dead. Nobody wants to do it anymore," and all of us were thrown out. Like I was kicked out, because there was no more need for a 51-year-old animator who knew what he was doing, because the kids were being, who could push the button, could work the computer better than I could, and so that's the truth. That's what occurred. And so all of it, tons of people. I mean, people with 25 years. I was 25 years experience at that time. People who were able to do these things because we knew what it was and how to give the performance. The problem is that you can write, but if you don't have a good idea, if the producers aren't doing the story, they're not getting great green lighting stuff that can connect with an audience. Animators could do the most beautiful animation in the world because it's a technical thing. You can't, it can't connect to the audience. Then nobody wants it. So that's being in the trenches there, and that's what happens. You have your body counts. I mean, being in the trenches of Hollywood is a lot of body counts.
It is. I've seen the same thing happen in other professions in Hollywood, particularly the world of post-production. When it went digital, so many positions were gone. People who worked from cutting negatives and color correcting and telecine film. It was a complete changing of the guard overnight. It seemed like so many veterans were just out of work. So yes, I didn't realize it was so deep in the animation world. I mean, I watched the evolution into the computer animated and the motion capture, and it's all really exciting and realistic in so many ways. But you're right. What do we sacrifice to get that realism? Some of the magic of the animation of the 2D.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things too. That's why I wanted to bring John on, because I think it's important that we recognize, in our generation, especially Craig, how paramount people like John are and were. They were involved in our childhood, and we didn't even know them. You know what I mean? That's such a huge thing. and people need to realize that when he came to Lexington Comic-Con, when I met him, you should see the people that were around him, and the people that were older than me completely fanboying over John. I was fanboying, but it was awesome, and it was cool because I knew, that excitement's still there for people of John's caliber. So,
well, you have got to feel good about having an effect on so many people with your work, and Ted and I included, and. It's such a pleasure to meet and talk to you. Unfortunately, we're out of time right now. We could go on for hours and hours. You got to come back sometime, and we can target a couple of these things that you brought up specifically.
Yeah. There could be there are so many different things, but there is, on a high note, I would say that if you learn how to the crowdfunding capabilities for comic books and for visual material is there. You just have to be able to understand what it takes to tell a good, solid story, how to draw it out and present it, not just verbally in terms of writing, but in your performance as an artist visually.
I agree. I know there's an audience for it. It still exists. It looks like corporate America, though, moved a different direction, and that always happens, and they'll be back. And I hope you come back too. It was great meeting you. Everyone can see on the screen there. They can reach you at Celestri John.
Yep, that's Twitter, and you can see me on YouTube. I have my channel, my John Celestri YouTube channel, where I've got a lot of videos, for the principles of animation. I do some interviews. There's a lot of material that is always evergreen.
That's great. So you're easy to find and accessible. So everybody, be sure to check him out. Go to his YouTube page, take some lessons. Where are you gonna be? Are you gonna make any appearances at any events?
Right now I'm focusing on book 3 of my Bloodwing Angel Chronicles. I've got 2 of them up on Indiegogo in demand right now, so that's what I do. And then also my kid book, my kid comics. I've got the stuff for older readers in terms of being plus 17s for Bloodwing Angel, but also I have for those who have kids who are 4 to 12-year-olds. I've got material there too on Indiegogo in demand. So
I love it.
Awesome.
The very, very versatile John Celestri, ladies and gentlemen. So they'll search you out again. Thank you so much, and look forward to having you back.
I look forward to being back.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate it kindly. That's it, man. That's history in the making right there. That's the man.
Legendary is what that's called. I was just kind of in awe the whole time. I don't get starstruck very often, but it was hard to, as he's talking, I'm just thinking about all the things he did, and I'm like, I should probably ask a question, but I don't know what to ask right now.
Just waiting. And when I met him, I was the same way in person. It was I was the 8-year-old kid again watching Boba Fett. And that's the first time I ever saw it before he was in the movies. I'm like,
sure.
I didn't really know, and the book that he handed me had all these original sketches, and I'm like, it was unbelievable. It was time travel.
Legendary stuff. All right, everybody. What a great show. Thanks for coming back and joining us after our little hiatus. You would never notice if you're just streaming all the episodes in one day, which I recommend you do when you're at work. Just do it. Use the work Wi-Fi. It's free from work. And
absolutely,
just listen to us while you work. Here's some great interviews. Looking forward to the next show. But it's time to get out of here. I gotta go. How about you?
I do too. Got to write. Send us some questions. You got some questions for John or us about writing, what you got going? Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. So you got our social medias all around there on the screen. It's always from the trenches of Hollywood, or what's the trenches of Hollywood? No, Hollywood Trenches, at the Hollywood Trenches, our Instagram. Hit that one up too. I'm no good at this stuff. That's why I got to write it down, and it's not written down. So anyway, thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks so much, man. We'll see you.
Artisan roasted small batch coffee with pop culture flair. The finest organic suspension ever devised.